Hey, what's up, guys? Run a Bunch here, bringing you another installment of the most under the radar sports betting, sports talk show on YouTube. Guys, let's go ahead and get right into it this Wednesday. This is the last day of March. We are heading into the April sports. MLB opening days tomorrow, so that's pretty exciting. And we have some Final Four action this weekend. So a lot of things going on. Soccer is back this weekend. They're starting to play in some leagues again, so we have some soccer picks coming this weekend as well. Guys, let's go ahead and get right into the sports for today. All right, guys, so my first pick of the day resides in the NBA. I have several NBA picks for tonight. I actually like the NBA slate tonight a decent amount. So my first pick tonight is going to be the New York Knicks -3.5 at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, my reasonings for this, so the Knicks, as you can see here, are 24-23 overall, but they are also an impressive 27-18-1 against the spread, which is much better than the 24-23 overall. The Timberwolves are, as you can see right here, 11-36 overall, but they are a pretty mediocre 19-26-1 against the spread. I personally believe that the reason why this spread is within 4 or 5 points is because the New York Knicks just lost their center, Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson is, I'm not sure if he's a rookie or a second-year player, but either way, he's a very talented big man. I believe he played at Kentucky. He's pretty talented, and losing him on the inside, especially on the defensive end, is very unfortunate for the New York Knicks, but the Timberwolves in this scenario are also without D'Angelo Russell, their starting point guard, guy they traded Andrew Wiggins for. He's pretty good, pretty solid. I mean, they're losing about 20, 25 points per game with him out. And this Minnesota Timberwolves team is already bad overall and against the spread. I just really like the New York Knicks in this situation to cover. Now, an interesting line I was looking at here before the video started, BetMGM right now has the New York Knicks at +2. It's pretty terrible odds at -200. It's not much money, but I mean, you can put more money down. That +2 is probably a pretty safe bet. Most places have it at -3.5. I don't really know why they have it so differently, but it is what it is. I don't know. Maybe BetMGM has, smartest betting site in the room complex or something. I don't know. Maybe they know something we don't. All right, guys, so my second pick for the NBA here, I like the Brooklyn Nets -12.5 versus the Houston Rockets. Now, this only hits if Christian Wood and John Wall do not play. The last few NBA picks that I've had, there has been some instances of me making picks strictly on because people aren't playing. And then, for example, on Monday's show, Steph Curry was out against the Chicago Bulls for the Golden State Warriors. So I liked the Bulls to beat the Warriors. Well, that game was at 10 p.m. and about 9:45, I get a notification that says Steph Curry late game time decision to play. Well, that completely ruins the pick. So I am saying right now that this only hits if Christian Wood and John Wall do not play. If they do play, I like the Houston Rockets +12.5 versus the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, if they play, all these betting sites will probably change the odds, inflate them or deflate them based on what they feel about John Wall and Christian Wood. I think personally they help the Rockets' chances a lot. Now, the Nets are only 23-24 against the spread, but they're a pretty solid 32-15 overall. The Rockets 13-33 overall, and they're a horrendous 14-32 against the spread. But a lot of that against the spread losses have been without Christian Wood and without John Wall in the lineup. With them in the lineup, they are much better against the spread. They lost about 15 straight games against the spread without Wood or Wall. And I personally, I'm giving you guys this pick, but I would wait to closer to game time to make a pick like this. I like the Nets -12.5 without Wall or Wood, but if they play, if they sometime this evening, if it comes out that they are playing, change that pick to plus 12.5. So that will decide the fate of this pick. So I just want to go ahead and warn you guys, most of these betting sites are on the 12.5, and 54% of the bets are actually on the Brooklyn Nets. So that's kind of nice. All right, guys, my third NBA pick of the evening is going to be the Lakers plus 9 versus the Bucks. So getting right into this is a pretty tough pick for me because the Milwaukee Bucks are very, very good. And both these teams have very similar records. The Lakers here are sitting at 30-17. The Bucks are 29-17. And they're both very similar against the spread. They both have losing records against the spread. I believe the Bucks are like 20-26 against the spread, and the Lakers are like 22-26 against the spread. So very, very similar records against the spread. So neither team really plays terrific against the spread, but they're not really terrible either. So my reasoning for this, Andre Drummond was just signed by the Los Angeles Lakers, and I think that he will help a lot of the offensive and defensive struggles the Lakers have had since LeBron James went down with an ankle injury. And I think the numbers are kind of inflated towards Milwaukee because of LeBron and AD not playing. But I do think the Lakers have a decent bench, and I think the guys that fill in for those can still score. I just think it was a lot of trouble on the defensive end, and I think Drummond, especially tonight, will somewhat neutralize Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I like them to cover that plus 9. I don't like them to win. I think Milwaukee wins this game because Milwaukee does have the talented star compared to, I think, Giannis weighs more than Andre Drummond. I think he plays him, but I think Drummond neutralizes Giannis enough to allow the Lakers to keep it within 9 points. All right, guys, this is my last NBA pick of the evening. Now, this is going to be my lock of the day. I really, really like this pick. I feel very good about this pick, which could cause for some concern with the last few lock of the days, lock of the nights, whatever you want to call it. But I really like this one, guys. I like the Sacramento Kings and the San Antonio Spurs to go under 230.5 points. My reasoning for this, these two teams just played the other day. The Sacramento Kings got the best of them. I think it was like 134 to 115, something like that. Very high scoring affair for both teams, really. But I expect, the San Antonio Spurs have a Hall of Fame coach in Greg Popovich, and they're at home. I expect them to make, adjustments to what the Kings did to beat them the first game. And it was a 15-point loss. It was pretty much a blowout. I don't think a team with Greg Popovich coaching gets blown out 2 games in a row. And the main reasoning for this, the numbers back this up as well. These two teams so far this season, when they have played back-to-back teams, are a combined 5-1 to the under for that back-to-back, that end of that back-to-back series. So the Kings are 2-0 and the Spurs are 3-1 on the under when they have played that same team the night before. I really, really like this number, guys. I've done a lot of math on this one. I love this pick. The under, it's pretty much 230.5 in most places except for this PointsBet New Jersey app. I'm not really sure exactly what that's about. But, yeah, pretty much the under is 230.5, and I think it's going to stay there. Ton of the public is betting on the under, and I think that is probably why. Very high-scoring affair in the first one, so I think they had to kind of inflate the number a little bit because they scored about 240 points, 245 points in the first matchup. But like I said, 5-1 to the under for that second of the back-to-back games. So, guys, I love this pick to end the NBA slate for this evening. Now, guys, moving on, I'm going to make an NHL pick this evening. Now, the NHL lines tonight are not that great, so I have just one pick for you. This is a very interesting matchup right here. We have the Toronto Leafs and the Winnipeg Jets, and I like the Jets money line versus the Leafs. Now, my reasoning for this one, they are two very similar teams, as you can see right here. The Jets 22-12-2, the Leafs 22-10-3. They are separated by 1 point in terms of total points for their division standings. The Leafs are first in the division, and the Jets are second in the division. So this is a pretty top tier matchup between two very talented teams. So I definitely don't like the puck spread here, like the -1.5 or the +1.5. There's no value on that tonight. So the money line's where it's at. Now, the Jets are 10-5-1 at home this season, and the Leafs are 10-6-1 on the road. So these teams are so even, it's actually ridiculous. And I understand why Toronto's slightly favored, just because they have the slightly better record. They're better in the division just slightly. But the Jets, if you look at the numbers, have a very slight edge on the Leafs in terms of offense, and they're also at home, and they're underdogs. The value on the Jets, as you can see down here, is right around +120, +125. I love that number on a team that's at home, an underdog, and is slightly better at scoring goals. I just feel like the risk is worth the reward in a sense for this pick. I like the Jets a lot. 53% of the public is on the Leafs, but that makes sense because they are the favorite. We're kind of fading that a little bit. I just really feel good about the Jets at home. They've won us some money on the show so far this season, and I'm hoping that they can continue that trend and maybe, contend for that first place spot in their division. Now, guys, we're going to use some MLB right now. Opening day is tomorrow, April 1st, so it's pretty exciting for baseball if you're a baseball bettor or a baseball fan. I have a hard time watching baseball a lot just because it does go a little bit slow at times, but every now and then I'll catch a game, especially when there's nothing else really on. So I like to bet baseball. I'm so far on this show, I'm 6-1-1 in spring training for baseball. So I'm really looking forward to getting into the actual season and seeing how the lines change and how we can adjust to that. Now, just kind of going over some stuff real quick for tomorrow. I have a few picks. I don't have much reasoning for them in terms of numbers, just because, the spring training numbers kind of go out the window. It's the very first game for all of these teams. They all play tomorrow. So there's really not much numbers backing this up, but I do have some picks for you guys. Obviously, first things first, I despise the Pittsburgh Pirates. They are a horrible franchise. I really like the Cubs to beat them tomorrow. Obviously, the value is really not there. The best thing you can get is -210, but definitely don't bet on the Pirates. First off, the Pirates, I think the over-under on them for wins right now is like 58. So people are expecting them to lose 100 games this season. They're very bad. They have no talent. They traded half their talent to the Tampa Bay Rays, who ended up going to the World Series last year. So, tough luck for Pittsburgh. It's how it's always been. Also, I like any spread with the Dodgers in them these first few games. I see here the Rockies are at home, but the Dodgers are so good. They're the title favorites this season, World Series favorites, and I understand why. They signed Trevor Bauer in the offseason, and they just have a ton of pitching talent. And I don't know who they're pitching tomorrow evening, but I just expected it to be a low-scoring affair, and I expect the Dodgers to win. Now, in terms of my picks, I like the Cardinals money line versus the Reds. This is a very tight spread, but like I said, the Dodgers signed Trevor Bauer, which means the Reds do not have Trevor Bauer anymore. I think a lot of times in the past seasons when the Reds have gone to the playoffs, the next season has been a little bit worse for them. They tend to kind of, fall back to some degree. And the St. Louis Cardinals are a team that is always kind of a sneaky playoff contender. So I like them to get this first win on opening day. Guys, I also really like the Brewers money line versus the Twins. Now, both these teams are very good, but the Brewers are at home and they've played very well in spring training. This opened up at +120 and it's gone down. So a lot of other people like the Brewers as well. So I really like them in this first opening day matchup. I think they get the win at home. That's really the reason why I'm going with them, is because they're at home. And, I love Christian Yelich. He's just an all-around stud of a player in center field there. And I don't really think the Twins are going to have the success that they had last season. But I like the Brewers money line. And then my last pick for tomorrow evening, I like the Athletics money line versus the Houston Astros here. I think the Astros are going to really see some, fading back in terms of their talent level. I think they're a good team, but I like the Athletics a lot, especially being at home. They're a solid team. They're one of those teams, because they're in Oakland, you don't really get a lot of TV time. So they're one of those teams over in the West, California, that isn't really on TV. So they kind of go under the radar. I like the Athletics a lot this season. I think they'll make it their playoff push. And I think in this first opening day matchup late night, 10:07 p.m. I think that they will get the W. Now, guys, moving on from the exciting MLB we have tomorrow, we also have some Final Four action this weekend in NCAA basketball. It's a great time to be a sports bettor right now with all these different sports going on. I just want to kind of talk about these lines today a little bit and then get into my picks on Friday for these games. But first things first, this Baylor-Houston matchup right here, honestly, the Baylor spread continues to go up. It opened at -5 and then it went down to -4 for some apps pretty instantly. And then now it's back up to -5 again. So it's kind of staying in that -5 area. Baylor is obviously the team to watch in this game. It kind of looks to me like they're on a collision with Gonzaga for the national championship. It's been that way all season. It kind of just feels that way. It feels like that's kind of a narrative that's being pushed here. But definitely don't sleep on this Houston team either. This is a solid Houston team that's proved me wrong this tournament. I really thought, them playing in the American Athletic, that they were kind of a, fake team. I thought the hype was kind of there. I didn't really like them out of this tournament, but they've also played, I believe that I could be wrong with this stat, but I think they are the first, if not one of the only teams to ever make the Final Four by playing just 10 or over seeds. So that means like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. They've played no seeds under a 10 seed to get to the Final Four, which I think is insane. I honestly, that is a crazy path. And I mean, it's not an easy path either. Oregon State was a very hot team they just beat. And Syracuse with that zone is not an easy out either. It's just nuts that they got to that kind of point. Now, one pick I do really like in this scenario, just going to show the total here as well. I like the numbers kind of around 135, 136, and then some places it looks like it's like 134.5. I really like the 135 to 136 as the under. It all just kind of depends on what Baylor does. So I'm kind of leaning towards making that a live bet over the weekend. But definitely be on the lookout for the over-under as well, because if it dips too much, I would probably take the over. Especially if it goes to about like under 130, I'd probably think about the over. But if it stays in that area, I like the under. Now, moving on to this second matchup we have here with UCLA and Gonzaga. Gonzaga just looks like the team of destiny at this point. It only makes sense that, in a pandemic year, that they'll be probably the first team in about 40 years since that undefeated Indiana, I believe. The undefeated Indiana back in like 1976, 77 to win the tournament going undefeated. It just kind of feels that way. They really impressed me last night against USC. They destroyed them, really. So they're huge favorites at the gate here, as you can see, -14. I don't like that number necessarily, but UCLA does kind of rely heavily on one player to do a lot of its dirty work outside in terms of scoring and three-point percentage. And I think that Gonzaga will probably neutralize that guy because they have so many defensive and offensive weapons. I don't like teams that have one player that carries them to a game like this, especially when you have Gonzaga that is just the absolute full team playing type. I just, I really was impressed with them against USC. I mean, the center, I think his last name's Timmy. He balled out, and he hasn't balled out like that all season. So I think they are kind of peaking at the exact right time. So I would hate to be playing Gonzaga at their peak. So poor UCLA. I'm leaning towards taking that -14, honestly, but I don't really like that number. Now, I would definitely not make this pick until Friday, but this is just kind of the lines, going over some things here for these Final Four games. Very excited for the Final Four. It should be a pretty interesting one, though it seems like everything is kind of lining up for Baylor and Gonzaga to have the ultimate showdown of number 1 versus number 2 in the entire country. So guys, that's pretty much going to wrap up the show for today. It might be a little bit of a long one, but there's a lot of exciting things going on in sports this week and this weekend coming up. We're heading out of March. We're going into April. Just a quick recap. On Monday, our show went 5-2. Our only 2 losses were that stupid game with the Golden State Warriors and Steph Curry coming back. I don't even really like to count that one, but I did make that pick. So, and I didn't really give much of a guarantee. So it was a lock of the day, which also kind of stinks. And then obviously Gonzaga just, throttled USC last night. So that was kind of upsetting. But other than that, 4-1 on Monday, 1-1 last night. Not too bad. 5-2. hopefully we can kind of continue that trend for today and tomorrow with the baseball picks, the NBA picks, and the NHL pick I have for you guys. I'd like to make this Friday a big show in terms of picks. I like to have a lot of picks. Hopefully the Final Four will have some picks, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB, and hopefully some soccer as well, guys. I know a lot of you guys are soccer fans out there, and I'm sorry, but they've kind of been on a break. They've been playing a lot of international games, and I'm not too familiar with the international teams, so I don't feel comfortable giving you guys picks on those because honestly, I don't know much about it. If you guys have any kind of like recommendations for that kind of thing, just let me know in the comments. But definitely expect some soccer picks this weekend, guys. And other than that, lock of the day is now 7-9 thanks to the Chicago Bulls losing and Steph Curry. Steph Curry, I'm upset at you right now, but hopefully you can make me some money in the future and we'll be okay. But guys, that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Thank you to all you sports betting and sport fanatics out there. I appreciate you guys watching. Just, like the video, subscribe for notifications on these videos so you guys know when I'm posting them. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I try to get them out before 5 p.m. Most of these games are after 7. So yeah, guys, I appreciate the viewership and cue the outro.